Seems like a good day for a good day. I'm curious what is in the cards for today. I mean, I kind of already know. I try to always have a game plan when I head into the shop as to what exactly I'm doing that day on that specific project. Now, of course, today we're going to be working on Old Yeller. We should probably name this car too. Old Yeller. That ain't that cool. But I think if we have enough time, we should be able to get the whole entire rear end assembled. Control arms. I got some new suspension for it, so I'm excited for that. Ooh, we have hubs. We have the spin or the knuckles, all the e-brake stuff. There's a lot going on, so we can just make as much progress, I guess, as we can. But there is a lot to do. We have endless amounts of work to do on this thing, which is exciting. I really need to get this block back. I don't need it right now, but sooner than later would be ideal. And then there's a couple other little things I'm trying to get as well, and I think it might have to be ordered from overseas. I need all the trunk liner carpet trim pieces. There's the two main ones on the side, and you cannot get them here in the States, new at least. I can't find any good used ones, so I'm trying to find those overseas, new from Mitsubishi. That's proving to also be difficult, and because I want like nice interior or mint interior is definitely like you have to have it, especially with everything else going on with this build. I ain't gonna just throw in some janky trunk liners. I have some janky ones, but I don't like janky. Also waiting on the Evo 8 SSL rear seats to come in. We already got the door panels on. I have the front seats. All that's in really, really good shape. Not new, of course, but good enough. Good. Mint. And that's about it as far as parts waiting goes. I figured today would be a good day to drive the M. I drove the NSX yesterday, and I drove it home. That car's not good. No good for these conditions. Mainly because the heater don't work. And it's freaking cold outside. It's 32 right now. I guess it's not that cold, but when you're used to it being like warm, 32 is pretty damn cold. So yeah, let's rip the M. That's what I thought this morning. The only time I care to have snow is on one day of the year. Just one day. Well, maybe 2 days. Christmas is a requirement. Christmas Eve is ideal. And to be completely honest, I don't think we're going to have either this year. We are exactly a week out from Christmas with no snow in the forecast. This car is ridiculously quick. It's almost like a two-stroke. Obviously, with this blower setup that's on here, the higher the RPM, the more boost it makes. It's not like a turbo car where, say, at 3,500 RPM, you just got 30 pounds. This is like 3,500 RPM, you got 1 pound, and then at 9K, or whatever she revs to, 8,800, I think it maxes out like 7.5 pounds, maybe. So it's quite interesting. It's like a power band, you'd call it. on a 2-stroke. Makes it fun to drive. It's like a little YZ85. So last night we went ahead and got the rear diff installed with the subframe, the mustache bar, the mounts, all that is good to go. Unfortunately, we do need to backtrack just a little bit. And the reason for it is we need to go ahead and get the filler neck installed. The subframe and the diff are kind of in the way to get this installed. Now it's not a big deal, being that it's only 4 bolts right now holding that assembly in. But we do need to go ahead and get this assembled and ready to install on the car first. I would prefer to replace all the hoses. A lot of the stuff you cannot get. Some of them are universal. Of course, this hose here, it's kind of oddly specific with all the bends and whatnot. It's in good shape, so we're gonna be using this one. Put new clamps on it, of course. This hose here, we may as well replace. It's just a generic hose with a little one-way valve right there. And then there's a couple smaller, like 3/16 probably size hose that goes there. Okay, that'll work for that size. I'm gonna put fuel rated hose on all this. I don't know if it needs it, but I would assume it does. I'm gonna tackle the little hoses up here first. One of them does require that one-way check valve, and I found a pretty good OEM image right here of how everything is ran. So from the side of the neck, this right here goes to this. So this piece sits like that. Okay, that makes sense. Hoses are pretty dry rotted. This thing sat outside for so freaking long. So that makes sense. Interesting fact, the filler neck shows discontinued. Good thing ours is brand new. Good, nice tight fit on there. Now, of course, these aren't OEM hoses with the OEM bends and whatnot, but it's the next best option. It's always good to use a high quality hose. For example, where's the cheap hose? See this hose? Kinks very, very easily. Quality hose, you can bend it. Still no kink. Okay, that'll work good. We just need some clamps. Factory is the spring clamp, which obviously works fine, but I really prefer fuel injection clamps that look like that. A little bit overkill for something like this, but we already have them here. I don't like that. Way too big. Needs a size smaller. So this is a 11 to 13 mil clamp. Looks like it needs a 9 to 11 mil. It would work, but it ain't good. Now that is a properly secured clamp. That clamp also happens to be the only one I have in that size. Next best thing. These aren't really meant for something like this, but I ain't trying to leave right now, I'm trying to work. So these are like an ear clamp, you'd call it. And they're kind of like a one-time use. Well, not kind of, they definitely are a one-time use, but let's be real. How many times are we gonna be pulling off the filler neck and messing around with it? Probably never, ever again in the history of this car. So after the clamp is on and in place, you just take these pliers here and you crimp it. And as you can see, it don't move, so we're good. If you go too tight with these, or any clamp in general, you do risk splitting the rubber, so don't do that. Second hose going on first, so we can access the clamps. All right, so those two hoses with the one-way valve, that's all finished up, looking nice and pretty. All right, let's go ahead and get this guy rebuilt real quick. New lines, new clamps, the works. Now on the fuel tank side of things, I am going to be using an actual clamp that we can remove just in case in the future we need to pull it for any sort of reason. We ain't struggling. Last piece, the actual filler neck hose itself. All the random vent and evap lines are finished, ready to go. I really wish I could replace this, but I ain't seeing it available anywhere. So it'll work. Okay, that is good. Now look, I ain't no filler neck expert, but if someone came to me and said, Devin, is this a nice filler neck? I would say, wow, she's mint. So the filler neck comes down right here, goes on top of the subframe, and connects to the fuel tank way back here. Now you can see why that would be an absolute pain with this in the way. Good thing it's loose. Let's pull her out. Also, I definitely don't like this. This is bummy. I don't know why they didn't get removed before paint. But we have a spare on the parts car, and that'll work great. All right, so a couple things. We may have to drop the tank down a little bit to get those lines connected. The filler neck does bolt to this piece right here, so this is gonna have to be installed first, which is not a big deal. Nice to see that all lines up. If you guys remember, we replaced this section of the rail. So this piece bolts to the front section and the rear section. And kind of tight tolerances, but everything lines up like it should, which is cool. And it looks nice in zinc. I think eventually I could fish those lines up in there, but to do it right, to make sure they're properly clamped and secured, I'm gonna drop the tank down, get the lines on, and then put the tank and the filler neck in together. Not a big deal. It's 4 nuts to hold the tank in. So these two back here were pretty easy to get to. This one, not happening. Ain't no way. I was saying a few days ago when we first started assembling this thing that there are certain pieces that have to go on in a certain order, certain orientation. Now you're seeing firsthand. This is clearly one of them. Fuel tank before the subframe, and before the fuel tank is the neck. All right, so the filler neck is gonna bolt on right here. Now this guy is officially going in for hopefully the last time. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it pretty loose, like so. I'm gonna get all the bolts in. So there's one there, 2 there, there, and then the 2 nuts. There's a lot. And then after all the bolts are slightly threaded in, we can go through, torque everything down. So we have 8 more bolts to install. Remember the long ones that go through here. These guys are here. Don't forget your washer. These 2 back here. Also take a washer, the right washer too, not some random washer. OEM washer. You would think all these threads would be pretty crunchy, being that we had the underside sandblasted, but they're so freaking clean. Pretty much thread everything in by hand, fully seated. Quite nice. So everything is fully seated and snugged up. Now, we're gonna torque. Finishing up the fuel filler neck, we have 2 more parts to install. So that piece there, I may have gone a little overboard on the zinc. Everything is zinced, but you know what? I like it, so it is what it is. These 2 pieces of hardware are actual Phillips screws. One of the only Phillips screws on the whole entire project. And the other piece is this little cover right here. So this guy is gonna sit like that. Yep. Very nice. Is that too much zinc? Nah. It is time to move on to suspension stuff in the rear. So what we have here is every single rear control arm. We got the uppers, we got lowers, we got more, and we got more. All these are aluminum. They all look like crap besides this one piece that I've been messing around with. Now I debated doing some color schemes on these, but kind of to match the rest of the theme of the build, I think it's gonna be best to just do what we do best and go OEM for this car. In the future, I think I discussed it yesterday, I do want to go through and like add color to some of this stuff. Like a matte bronze, I think would look really good. But for today, it's all going OEM. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna not drop our camera. We're gonna go through piece by piece and glass bead every single one of these. We will definitely be here for a minute. Now I did already go through a while ago and degrease and pressure wash these pieces. But now it's time to take them to the next level. So this piece right here is how it looked before. Gunk everywhere. And after. Brand new. All finished up. This is what we ended up with. Now, of course, they are used, but they look very, very nice. I find it quite efficient to just use the powder coat rack for spraying Cerakote, even though they don't need to be baked. This is an air cure Cerakote that we're going to be applying today. It's just nice to use the rolling cart. I really like what we did yesterday on the rear subframe with the aluminum brightener. Seemed to help out a little bit as far as aluminum brightness goes. So I'm gonna do it again. Unless you're just now tuning in, you know exactly what we're spraying on these components. MC160 high gloss ceramic clear coat. Cerakote is what this is. Now we could just leave them bare, glass beaded, they look good, but this is gonna make them look good forever. They can get stained right now. If you Cerakote them, it avoids all that. Well, that was dumb. Those are gorgeous. Let's get some up close details. It's been a couple hours. So these take 5 full days to fully cure, but after 1 hour, they're tack free and not like wet anymore. But it's been like 5 hours and they should be good enough to handle. Of course, we do have to press parts back in, but it's gotta be done tonight. It doesn't have to be, but I want it to be. You guys remember how these things looked earlier? Look at them now. Absolutely gorgeous. A little bit of pitting and whatnot, but it's an old 2003 aluminum part. There's going to be some character to it, I guess you could say. So all these holes that you see require either a ball joint or some sort of bushing. So in total we have 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 plus 6 is 20 items to press back in. And we gotta be careful, obviously. We don't wanna split the aluminum. We don't wanna damage the coating at all. We gotta take our time. So I'm hoping to get all that finished up tonight so we can at least see these things on the car and see how good they look. Let's get to work. Laid out in front of me here is all of the control arms with the associated bushings and whatnot. Here's what we're gonna do. A couple of these pieces do require a special orientation. For example, these rear upper control arms, this guy right here that bolts to the body, it has to be pressed in a very specific manner, I guess you could say. So I'm gonna save those for last. Anything else that doesn't require a specific orientation, we can just go ahead and slide on in. So here's the lowers. I guess you'd consider these trailing arms. In our bushing kit that we bought from Prothane, which is what we used for the rear diff mounts, they also included these for the trailing arms. So those are going to replace those, so I'm not going to need those. And then all the ball joints, ball joint covers and whatnot, we're going to do all that stuff last. I'm nervous. I don't want to mess these things up, but they ain't going to press themselves in, so let's go press them in. I personally am a big fan of using these impact sockets. These things are really, really beefy, and you can put a lot of pressure on them without worrying about it exploding. So these are my pressing tools for the night, is a bunch of SK Tools impact sockets. So of course I want to keep these things in as good of shape as possible. Cerakote is very, very strong, but it's not 20-ton hydraulic press strong. So let's try not to ruin these things at all. Now, of course, it's very important that when we start pressing, the bushing is going in perfectly straight. If it's going in crooked, it's most likely going to split the control arm, which, even though I have spares off the parts car, I would prefer to not go through the hassle of recoating and doing all that fun stuff. Every couple pumps, I'm going to pull the arm out and make sure it's actually going in straight. Update, we're an hour deep and I have 6 bushings pressed in to the lower rear control arms. It's going to take a while. Now, based on my very elaborate photo, these guys are going to be pressed in at a slight angle. Maybe 5 degrees. Okay. So this is how I'm going to set this one up. Put that like that. That guy goes there. That guy goes there. Like I said, the most important part is right at the beginning. If we start pressing it crooked from the start, it's going to be a pain. Bam. Just got all the ball joints pressed back in. Last thing to press in are these freaking things. I'm not sure how this is going to go. Well, that ain't going to work like that. What if I utilize that? If it just goes straight down, it should work. Nope, she's going. There we go. right, making good progress. It's taking forever, but it's okay. So all the ball joints that needed to be replaced are replaced. All of the ball joints take one of these clips right here. So go ahead and set all those on, apply some more grease, and then they all get a fresh rubber or a fresh boot. So let's do that, and then we gotta finish up the fronts of these and make them on the car. Now how should I get these on? If I could somehow utilize these big boys, that would be slick. Oh yeah. Easy work. Very, very, very last thing to do, just grab these sleeves, toss on the supplied grease, and insert. All right. So much work, but this is fun work, right? Spread a little out here. I don't know if you're supposed to, but it probably couldn't hurt. Nobody likes a squeaky bushing. All the ball joints are fully greased, installed, boots are on. And these things, my friends, are finally ready for the car. 100% ready to go. So we should probably start with, I don't think it really matters if I'm being honest, but let's start with the uppers. First one is on, looks beautiful. Let's keep her moving. Always nice when the parts fit like they should. If you don't press the bushing in enough, it kind of will throw off the spacing of everything, and then stuff don't fit. Next up is the trailing arms. Each of the bolts, I'm putting a little bit of grease on, not so much the threads, but from here to here, where it does ride on that collar. And of course, none of these are going to get torqued down to the proper spec until everything is complete and we get some sort of load on the suspension. Up next is the lowers. Now these guys, of course, get the, what would you call it, like the concentric, whatever you want to call it, the alignment bolt. So it goes bolt, the offset washer, lock nut, or lock washer, and the nut. And those can just hang freely. Now I can't remember if the bolt is supposed to go through the inside or through the outside. I don't think it matters. Of course, either way is gonna work fine. But I want an OE spec. Of course, OE spec is the best. Okay, last up is the toe arm. Now the toe arm takes the shorter of the two on the alignment bolt. And if I'm not mistaken, it can only go in one way. I believe the fuel tank is in the way to go from the other side. Now I know it doesn't look like we got a lot done today, but I'm telling you, getting all those bushings pressed back in, all the control arms hanging, this is a massive step in the right direction for creating my cleanest Evo ever. I don't know if I should continue saying I'm trying to build the world's cleanest. Not that I'm giving up on that. Of course, I still want this thing to be the world's nicest. But obviously there's people out there that are better than me at this craft of restoration. But I don't know, man. This thing's pretty damn nice. But like I said, there's obviously them people that are even like weirder than me that have even more attention to detail than I do. Like I'm sure if you went through and just put brand new control arms on it, technically that would make it nicer, right? But overall, let's be honest, it's coming out pretty damn good. Our pile of bolts is definitely getting down there. So these are all the big boy bolts. And it's slowly but surely dwindling down to nothing. A lot of that stuff is going to be for up front now. There's still some stuff for the rear, of course, but for the most part, a lot of this is going to go up front. And of course, we haven't really done anything small, so we still have a billion of these freaking things. All the M5, M6 bolts and nuts. We got too many of them. I don't think I ever mentioned either. When I dropped all these bolts off, I took a bunch of just random bolts I have in the bolts bin up at the front of the shop and had those zinced as well, because if you guys haven't noticed, the zinc plating shop can certainly lose pieces here and there, and I didn't want to get down to the end of the build and just be missing random bolts. So I got a bunch of spares zinced as well. Well, that was a pretty good, solid day. Time for a good, nice, solid rip back home. Maybe, just maybe one day, I'll get around to fixing this freaking check engine light. Good old evap stuff. I'm kind of wondering if it has anything to do with why this, whenever you're putting gas in it, you gotta like tilt the nozzle upside down, and some weird evap stuff going on there too. So I bet they probably are correlated. If I fix one, it'll fix the other. Till then, I'll just chalk it up as BMW doing BMW things. Watch this van as it takes off. I thought this was a Subi at first. Definitely 100% blown head gaskets. Oh my gosh, bro. Must be EJ swapped. Look at that thing. Wow. Smells like straight freaking coolant. I bet that coolant temp is just pegged. Pegged on hot. Gotta be. Oh, good lord, I cannot see. Okay.